In a world where control seems like an illusion, one woman's journey through job loss and family illness reveals the transformative power of Stoic wisdom. The bustling streets of Chicago seemed unusually quiet to Evelyn Parker as she walked out of the gleaming glass doors of Midwest Financial Corp. The cardboard box in her arms, filled with 5 years of memories and hard work, felt heavier than it should. Just an hour ago, she was a rising star in the company's marketing department. Now she was just another casualty of corporate downsizing. As she reached her car, a sleek sedan that suddenly felt like an extravagance, her phone buzzed. The caller ID displayed Mom, and Evelyn's heart sank. Her mother had been undergoing tests for weeks, and today was the day they'd get the results. With trembling fingers, she answered the call. "Evelyn, honey," her mother's voice quivered. It's not good news." The words hit Evelyn like a physical blow. "Cancer, stage 3. As her mother's voice faded into a blur of medical terms and treatment plans, Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her feet. In the span of a single hour, her carefully constructed world had crumbled. Driving home in a daze, Evelyn's mind raced. How would she pay her bills without a job? How could she support her mother through treatment? The weight of these questions threatened to crush her. As she entered her apartment, her eyes fell on a small leather-bound book on her coffee table, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It was a gift from her grandfather, a man who had weathered the Great Depression and 2 wars with unwavering calm. "When life gets tough, this book will be your anchor," he had told her. With shaking hands, Evelyn picked up the book and let it fall open. Her eyes landed on a passage. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The words seemed to leap off the page, speaking directly to her tumultuous heart. In that moment, surrounded by uncertainty and fear, Evelyn made a decision. She would face these challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities to practice the Stoic principles her grandfather had long espoused. Little did Evelyn know this decision would be the first step on a transformative journey, one that would test her resolve, challenge her perceptions, and ultimately lead her to discover an inner strength she never knew she possessed. The following morning, Evelyn woke up with a sense of purpose she hadn't expected. The events of yesterday still weighed heavily on her mind, but the words from Meditations echoed in her thoughts. She decided to start her day with a simple Stoic exercise, identifying what was within her control and what wasn't. Grabbing a notepad, she began to write, "Can't control. Job loss, Mom's cancer diagnosis, the economy. Can control. My reactions, my actions, how I spend my time." The act of writing it down brought a strange sense of clarity. She couldn't change the fact that she'd lost her job, but she could control how she responded to it. With this in mind, Evelyn crafted a plan for the day. Update her resume, reach out to her network, and research financial assistance options for her mother's treatment. As she worked through her list, Evelyn's phone rang. It was her best friend, Sarah. "Ev, I heard about your job. I'm so sorry. Want to meet for coffee and vent?" Evelyn paused, considering the Stoic principle of emotional resilience. "Actually, Sarah, could we meet at the park instead? I could use some fresh air and a clear head to brainstorm my next steps." Sarah's surprise was evident in her voice, but she agreed. At the park, as they walked along the winding paths, Evelyn shared not just her challenges but also her newfound approach to them. Sarah listened, her initial sympathy turning to admiration. "Ev, I don't know how you're keeping it together. If it were me, I'd be a mess." Evelyn smiled softly. "I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm trying to focus on what I can change rather than what I can't. It's liberating in a way." As they parted, Sarah hugged her tightly. "You're stronger than you know, Ev. Let me know if you need anything." Returning home, Evelyn felt a glimmer of hope. She hadn't solved all her problems, but she had taken the first steps towards facing them with grace and resilience. That evening, as she prepared for a visit to her mother the next day, Evelyn stumbled upon another passage in Meditations. "You shouldn't give circumstances the power to rouse anger, for they don't care at all." She pondered these words as she packed a bag for the hospital visit. The situation was far from ideal, but getting angry at the unfairness of it all wouldn't change anything. Instead, she decided to channel that energy into being there for her mother, into finding solutions rather than dwelling on problems. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Evelyn realized that while her external circumstances hadn't changed, something within her had shifted. She was beginning to embody the Stoic principles, one small decision at a time. The sterile smell of the hospital assaulted Evelyn's senses as she walked through the sliding doors. Her mother's room was on the 3rd floor, and each step up felt like a battle against gravity and fear. As she approached the room, Evelyn took a deep breath, reminding herself of another Stoic principle, focusing on the present moment. She plastered a smile on her face as she entered. "Hey, Mum, how are you feeling today?" Her mother, Sarah Parker, looked pale against the white hospital sheets, but her eyes lit up at the sight of her daughter. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm okay. Just a little tired from all these tests." As they chatted, Evelyn noticed the tremor in her mother's hands, the way her eyes occasionally drifted to the window as if seeking escape. It struck Evelyn that her mother, too, was grappling with accepting the uncontrollable. "Mom?" Evelyn said softly, reaching for her hand. "I've been reading this book, and I think it might help us both." She pulled out meditations from her bag and began to read aloud. "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." Sarah's eyes welled with tears. "That's beautiful, Evelyn, and so true. We can't change this diagnosis, but we can face it together, with love." As they discussed the treatment plan with the doctors, Evelyn felt a new strength coursing through her. She asked pointed questions, took detailed notes, and reassured her mother at every turn. The doctors seemed impressed by her composure. Later that afternoon, as Evelyn was leaving the hospital, her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from a startup she'd applied to on a whim the day before. They wanted to interview her for a marketing position. For a moment, excitement surged through her. Then, remembering her Stoic practices, she took a deep breath. This was good news, certainly, but she reminded herself not to get too attached to outcomes she couldn't control. As she drove home, Evelyn reflected on the day's events. She had faced her mother's illness head-on, without crumbling under the weight of fear and uncertainty. She had potentially found a new job opportunity, but was maintaining a healthy detachment from the outcome. Most importantly, she realized that by accepting what she couldn't control, her mother's illness, the job market, she was freeing up mental and emotional energy to focus on what she could control: her actions, her attitudes, and her responses to life's challenges. That night, as she prepared for bed, Evelyn felt a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in days. The future was still uncertain, but she was learning to navigate it with grace and resilience, one Stoic principle at a time. 2 weeks had passed since Evelyn's mother began her cancer treatment. The startup interview had gone well, and Evelyn was cautiously optimistic about her prospects. As she walked into the hospital for her daily visit, she felt more centered than she had in weeks, thanks to her continued practice of Stoic principles. However, life had one more curveball to throw her way. As she approached her mother's room, she noticed a flurry of activity. Nurses were rushing in and out, and there was an undercurrent of urgency in the air. Evelyn's heart raced as she quickened her pace. Inside, she found her mother pale and gasping for breath, an oxygen mask covering her face. Dr. Thompson, the oncologist, was by her bedside, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What's happening?" Evelyn demanded, struggling to keep her voice steady. Dr. Thompson turned to her, his expression grave. "Evelyn, your mother has developed a rare complication from the chemotherapy. Her lungs are filling with fluid, making it difficult for her to breathe. We need to act quickly." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Just when Evelyn thought she had found her footing, the ground was shifting again. She closed her eyes briefly, recalling a passage from Meditations. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Opening her eyes, Evelyn took a deep breath and asked, "What do we need to do, doctor?" Dr. Thompson explained that Sarah needed an emergency procedure to drain the fluid from her lungs. It was risky, given her weakened state, but necessary. As the medical team prepared for the procedure, Evelyn held her mother's hand, whispering words of encouragement. "Mom, you're stronger than you know. We're in this together, remember?" Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand weakly, her eyes conveying what her oxygen mask prevented her from saying. As they wheeled Sarah away, Evelyn found herself alone in the suddenly quiet room. The gravity of the situation hit her full force. She sank into a chair, her hands shaking. In that moment of crisis, Evelyn realized that her journey into Stoicism was not just about maintaining calm in the face of adversity. It was about finding the strength to act decisively when it mattered most. She pulled out her phone and began making calls, to family members, to her mother's friends, to her own support network. As she coordinated and communicated, Evelyn felt a strange sense of purpose. She couldn't control her mother's condition, but she could ensure that Sarah was surrounded by love and support, no matter what happened next. The next few hours would test Evelyn's newfound philosophy in ways she never imagined. The waiting room clock ticked relentlessly as Evelyn sat, her body tense, but her mind surprisingly clear. She had spent the last 3 hours alternating between pacing the sterile hallways and attempting to meditate in the uncomfortable plastic chairs. As family members and friends arrived, drawn by her earlier calls, Evelyn found herself in the unexpected role of a pillar of strength. "How are you holding up, sweetie?" her Aunt Susan asked, her voice thick with worry. Evelyn took a deep breath before responding. "I'm managing. We can't control what's happening in there, but we can control how we respond to it." Her words, echoing the Stoic teachings she'd been studying, seemed to have a calming effect on the group. Even in this moment of crisis, Evelyn was surprised to find that her newfound philosophy was not just helping her, but those around her as well. Finally, Dr. Thompson emerged from the operating room, his face etched with fatigue but bearing a hint of relief. "The procedure was successful," he announced. "We've managed to drain the fluid from Sarah's lungs. She's stable, but the next 48 hours will be critical." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the group. Evelyn felt a wave of emotion threaten to overwhelm her, but she steadied herself, remembering Marcus Aurelius's words, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." As the group dispersed, promising to return during visiting hours, Evelyn found herself alone with Dr. Thompson. "Your mother is lucky to have you," he said softly. "Your calm demeanor during this crisis, it's remarkable." Evelyn smiled wryly. "I'm trying to practice Stoicism. It's teaching me to focus on what I can control and accept what I can't." Dr. Thompson nodded approvingly. "That's a valuable philosophy, especially in times like these. But remember, Evelyn, it's okay to feel. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about responding to them wisely." His words struck a chord. Evelyn realized that in her attempt to embody Stoic principles, she had been holding back her own feelings. As if on cue, tears began to well up in her eyes. "Thank you, Doctor," she whispered, allowing herself, for the first time since this ordeal began, to truly feel the weight of her emotions. As she wiped away her tears, Evelyn's phone buzzed. It was an email from the startup she had interviewed with. They were offering her the job. In that moment, standing in the hospital corridor, Evelyn felt the full spectrum of human emotion, fear, relief, sadness, and hope, all coexisting within her. And for the first time, she understood that true Stoic strength wasn't about being unaffected, but about facing life's complexities with grace and resilience. As the sun rose over Chicago's skyline, Evelyn found herself standing at the entrance of Innovate Tech, the startup that had offered her the marketing position. The glass doors reflected her image, a woman who looked simultaneously nervous and determined. She took a deep breath, recalling a passage from Meditations. "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." With renewed resolve, she stepped into the building. The office was a stark contrast to her previous workplace. Instead of cubicles, there were open spaces filled with vibrant colors and unconventional furniture. Young professionals bustled about, their energy palpable. "Evelyn, welcome aboard," a cheerful voice called out. It belonged to Alex, the CEO who had interviewed her. "Ready to dive in?" Evelyn nodded, forcing a smile. She was grateful for the opportunity, but her thoughts kept drifting to her mother in the hospital. As Alex showed her around, introducing her to the team, Evelyn's phone buzzed. It was a text from the hospital. "Mrs. Parker's condition stable, showing signs of improvement." Relief washed over her, but it was quickly followed by a new wave of anxiety. How was she going to balance this new job with her mother's ongoing care? Her internal struggle must have shown on her face, because Alex paused, concern etching his features. "Everything okay, Evelyn?" For a moment, Evelyn considered deflecting, putting on a brave face, but then she remembered Dr. Thompson's words about the importance of acknowledging emotions. "Actually, Alex, there's something I need to discuss with you." Over the next few minutes, Evelyn explained her situation, her recent job loss, her mother's illness, and her commitment to being there for her family while also giving her best to this new opportunity. Alex listened intently, his expression softening. "Evelyn, I appreciate your honesty. Life is complicated and we understand that here. Let's work together to find a balance that works for everyone." His understanding was unexpected and deeply appreciated. As they continued the tour, discussing flexible hours and remote work options, Evelyn felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps it was possible to honor her commitments to both her family and her career. However, as she settled into her new desk, a notification popped up on her computer screen. The company's biggest client was unsatisfied with their recent campaign and threatening to pull out. Alex's voice rang out across the office. "Team meeting in 5 minutes. We've got a situation." Evelyn took a deep breath. It seemed the universe was intent on testing her newfound stoic resilience in every aspect of her life. The emergency team meeting stretched into the evening. Evelyn found herself at the center of a brainstorming session to save the company's biggest account. Her years of experience in traditional marketing clashed with the startup's innovative approaches, creating a tension-filled atmosphere. As the clock ticked past 8 p.m., Evelyn's phone lit up with a call from the hospital. Excusing herself, she stepped out into the hallway, her heart racing. "Ms. Parker," the nurse's voice was calm but urgent. "Your mother's had a setback. She's asking for you." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Evelyn's mind raced, torn between her professional obligations and her personal crisis. She returned to the meeting room, where expectant faces turned to her. I have to go," she stammered. "Family emergency." Alex's brow furrowed with concern. "Evelyn, I understand, but we're at a critical point here. Is there any way you can stay for just another hour?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Evelyn closed her eyes, recalling a passage from Meditations. "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." She took a deep breath, centering herself. When she opened her eyes, her gaze was clear and determined. "I'm sorry, but I need to be with my mother right now," she said firmly. "However, I have an idea that might help with the client situation. Give me 20 minutes at the hospital, and I'll call in with my proposal." Alex nodded, a mix of respect and concern in his eyes. "Okay, we'll wait for your call." As Evelyn rushed to the hospital, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions and ideas. She was living the very dilemma that Stoicism aimed to address: how to remain true to one's values and duties in the face of competing demands. Arriving at the hospital, she found her mother awake but weak. "Evelyn," Sarah whispered, "I'm sorry to pull you away from work." Evelyn took her mother's hand, fighting back tears. "Don't apologize, Mom. You're my priority." As she sat by her mother's bedside, Evelyn pulled out her phone and began typing furiously. She was crafting a proposal that would bridge the gap between traditional marketing strategies and the startup's innovative approach, a solution born from the very conflict she was experiencing in her own life. At that moment, balancing her phone, her mother's hand, and her racing thoughts, Evelyn realized that true Stoic wisdom wasn't about choosing between duty and emotion, but about finding harmony amidst life's competing demands. As dawn broke over Chicago, Evelyn found herself caught in a whirlwind of activity. Her proposal had not only saved the client account, but had also sparked a new direction for the company. However, the victory felt hollow as she juggled her newfound work responsibilities with her mother's deteriorating health. One particularly hectic morning, Evelyn rushed into the hospital, her arms full of files she'd been reviewing overnight. Dr. Thompson was waiting for her, his face grave. "Evelyn, we need to talk," he said, leading her to a quiet corner. "Your mother's cancer has spread more aggressively than we anticipated. We need to consider more drastic treatment options." The words hit Evelyn like a physical blow. She steadied herself against the wall, her mind racing to process this new information. What are our options?" she managed to ask. Dr. Thompson explained a risky new trial treatment. It offered hope, but came with severe side effects and no guarantees. The decision had to be made quickly. As Evelyn sat by her mother's bedside explaining the situation, her phone buzzed incessantly. Alex was calling. The client wanted to move up the deadline for the new campaign. Sarah noticed her daughter's distraction. "Sweetheart, you should take that call. Your work is important too." Evelyn felt torn, the weight of her dual responsibilities crushing down on her. She recalled a passage from Meditations: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Taking a deep breath, Evelyn made a decision. She silenced her phone and turned to her mother. "No, Mom. Right now, this is where I need to be. We have an important decision to make." As they discussed the treatment options, Evelyn's phone continued to buzz. Emails piled up. The outside world demanded her attention, but she remained present, focused on the crucial conversation at hand. Just as they were about to call Dr. Thompson with their decision, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Alarms blared, and medical staff rushed past their room. Moments later, a nurse burst in. "Ms. Parker, we need to move your mother immediately. There's been a fire in the west wing of the hospital." Chaos ensued as patients were evacuated. As they wheeled Sarah out, Evelyn's phone rang again. This time it was Alex, his voice panicked. "Evelyn, where are you? The client is here for the presentation. We need you." In that moment, with alarms blaring, her mother being wheeled away, and her career hanging in the balance, Evelyn faced the ultimate test of her newfound Stoic principles. The decisions she would make in the next few minutes would change the course of her life forever. The hospital parking lot was a scene of controlled chaos. Patients on gurneys, worried family members, and harried medical staff filled the space. Evelyn stood beside her mother's gurney, one hand clutching Sarah's, the other holding her still buzzing phone. "Go," Sarah said weakly, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Your team needs you." Evelyn hesitated, torn between her mother and her career obligations. Just then, a familiar voice called out, "Evelyn! Sarah!" It was Dr. Thompson making his way through the crowd. "I'll stay with your mother," he said, understanding in his eyes. "You've been here every day. Take care of what you need to." Gratitude washed over Evelyn. She kissed her mother's forehead and whispered, "I'll be back as soon as I can. Dr. Thompson will keep you safe." As Evelyn navigated through the crowded streets, she called Alex. "I'm on my way. Start without me, but leave the closing to me." Arriving at the office, she burst into the conference room, disheveled but determined. The client, Mr. Yamamoto, raised an eyebrow at her appearance. "Ms. Parker, I presume," he said coolly. "Your team has been presenting your interesting ideas." Evelyn took a deep breath, centering herself. She thought of her mother's strength, of the Stoic principles she'd been studying. In that moment, she found a well of calm within herself. "Mr. Yamamoto," she began, her voice steady, "I apologize for my tardiness, but I believe it's given me a unique perspective on our campaign." Over the next 15 minutes, Evelyn wove a narrative that connected the chaos of her morning with the client's need for adaptability in the market. She spoke of resilience, of finding opportunity in crisis, seamlessly tying it back to the product. As she concluded, the room was silent. Then, slowly, Mr. Yamamoto began to applaud. "Ms. Parker, your team's ideas were good, but your perspective, that's what we've been missing. You've got yourself a deal." The room erupted in cheers. Alex rushed to shake Evelyn's hand, his eyes shining with admiration and curiosity. As the excitement died down, Evelyn checked her phone. A text from Dr. Thompson awaited. "Sarah's safe, resting comfortably in a new room. She's proud of you." Overwhelmed with emotion, Evelyn excused herself and found a quiet corner. She let out a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day's events. A knock on the door interrupted her moment of solitude. It was Alex. "Evelyn," he said softly, "I don't know what you're going through, but I want you to know we're here for you. All of us, whatever you need." In that moment, Evelyn realized that her Stoic journey wasn't just about personal strength. It was also about allowing others to be strong for her when she needed it most. Weeks flew by in a blur of hospital visits and late nights at the office. Evelyn's success with the Yamamoto account had catapulted her into a leadership role at Innovate Tech, while her mother's condition remained precarious, oscillating between improvement and setbacks. One crisp autumn morning, Evelyn sat in Dr. Thompson's office, the weight of impending decisions heavy in the air. "The experimental treatment isn't working as we'd hoped," Dr. Thompson said gently. "We need to consider hospice care, Evelyn." The word hospice hit her like a physical blow. Evelyn closed her eyes, recalling a passage from Meditations. "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together. But do so with all your heart." She opened her eyes, meeting Dr. Thompson's gaze. "I understand. Can we discuss the options?" As they delved into the details, Evelyn's phone buzzed incessantly. Alex's name flashed on the screen repeatedly. She silenced it, focusing on the matter at hand. Later, as Evelyn sat by her mother's bedside explaining the situation, her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Evelyn, where are you?" Alex's voice was frantic. "The board is here. They're considering a buyout offer from Megacorp. We need your presentation on the company's future vision. You're the only one who can convince them to stay independent." Evelyn felt the world closing in. The two pillars of her life, family and career, were simultaneously demanding her full attention. "Alex, I can't. My mother..." "Evelyn," Sarah interrupted weakly, having overheard the conversation. "Go. You've worked so hard for this." "Mum, no. You need me here." Sarah reached for her daughter's hand. "I need you to live your life, sweetheart, to use your talents. That's what gives me joy." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes as she looked at her mother, then at her phone, then back at her mother. "Ms. Parker," Dr. Thompson's voice came from the doorway. "We need to make a decision about the hospice arrangement soon." At that moment, Alex's voice crackled through the phone. "Evelyn, are you there? The meeting starts in 30 minutes. It's now or never." Evelyn stood at the precipice of the most difficult decision of her life. The principles of Stoicism had guided her this far, but now they seemed to pull her in opposite directions. Honor her duty to her career, or be present for her mother's final days. Navigate her own path or yield to the wishes of those she loved. As the clock ticked and the pressure mounted, Evelyn realized that this moment would define not just her understanding of Stoicism, but her very character. Evelyn's heart raced as she looked from her mother to her phone and back again. The weight of the decision pressed down on her, threatening to crush her resolve. But in that moment of intense pressure, a strange calm washed over her. She thought of Marcus Aurelius's words, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Taking a deep breath, Evelyn made her choice. "Alex," she spoke into the phone, her voice steady. "I can't make it to the office, but I have an idea. Set up a video conference. I'll present from here." Alex's protest was cut short as Evelyn ended the call. She turned to Dr. Thompson. "Can we use one of the conference rooms? I need to do this presentation, but I'm not leaving the hospital." Dr. Thompson nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. Within minutes, Evelyn had set up in a small conference room, her laptop open, her mother wheeled in beside her. As the video call connected, showing a room full of suited executives, Evelyn felt a surge of determination. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board," she began, her voice clear and confident, "I'm speaking to you today from Mercy Hospital, where my mother is battling cancer." A murmur of surprise rippled through the boardroom. "You might wonder why I'm telling you this. It's because today we're not just deciding the fate of a company, we're deciding what kind of company we want to be." Over the next 20 minutes, Evelyn laid out a vision for Innovate Tech that went beyond profit margins and market share. She spoke of a company culture that valued its employees as whole persons, that understood the complex realities of human life. She proposed flexible work arrangements, comprehensive healthcare, and family support programs. By investing in our people, she concluded, we invest in innovation, loyalty, and sustainable growth. This is how we stay independent. This is how we thrive. As she finished, silence fell over the video call. Then slowly applause began to build. The board members were nodding, smiling, some even wiping away tears. Alex's face filled the screen. "Evelyn, that was remarkable. The board has decided unanimously. We're staying independent, and they want you to lead our new human-centric innovation division." A wave of emotion washed over Evelyn. She turned to her mother, who was beaming with pride. But as the excitement of the moment began to fade, reality set back in. There was still the matter of her mother's care to address. As Dr. Thompson re-entered the room, his expression somber, Evelyn realized that her trials were far from over. The true test of her newfound wisdom was yet to come. The euphoria of Evelyn's professional triumph quickly faded as she refocused on her mother's deteriorating condition. Dr. Thompson's expression was grave as he reviewed Sarah's latest test results. "Evelyn," he said gently, "your mother's condition is declining rapidly. We need to make a decision about hospice care immediately." Sarah, who had been quiet until now, spoke up weakly. "I've made my decision. I want to go home." Evelyn felt her world tilting on its axis. "But Mom, the care you need can be provided at home," Dr. Thompson interjected. "It's not uncommon for patients to prefer familiar surroundings in their final days." The word "final" hit Evelyn like a physical blow. She closed her eyes, trying to center herself. A passage from Meditations floated into her mind. "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." Opening her eyes, Evelyn nodded slowly. "Okay, Mum. If that's what you want, we'll make it happen." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of activity. Evelyn coordinated with hospice services, arranged for medical equipment to be delivered to her mother's house, and worked remotely to set up her new division at Innovate Tech. As she helped settle her mother into the familiar surroundings of home, Evelyn's phone buzzed incessantly. Alex's name flashed on the screen. "Evelyn, I hate to do this, but we need you in New York. The board wants you to present your vision in person to our major shareholders. It's crucial for our independence." Evelyn felt torn. She looked at her mother, now resting peacefully in her own bed, surrounded by photos and mementos of a life well lived. "Alex, I can't leave right now. My mother—" "Go," Sarah interrupted, her voice weak but determined. "You've worked so hard for this, sweetheart. I'll be here when you get back." Evelyn's heart constricted. She knew, with a certainty that terrified her, that if she left now, she might not see her mother alive again. As if reading her thoughts, Sarah reached for her hand. "Remember what your grandfather used to say? Life is a series of moments. Make each one count." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes. She was standing at a crossroads, facing the ultimate test of her Stoic principles. How does one choose between professional duty and personal love? Between honoring a dying wish and following one's own heart? The decision she would make in the next few moments would define not just her career, but the very essence of who she was as a person. Evelyn stood in her mother's bedroom, the weight of her decision bearing down on her like a physical force. She looked at her mother, frail but serene in her bed, then at her buzzing phone displaying flight options to New York. The ticking clock seemed to echo the rapidly diminishing time she had left with her mother. In that moment, Evelyn realized that this wasn't just about choosing between career and family. It was about honoring the principles she'd been striving to embody throughout this journey. She closed her eyes, recalling Marcus Aurelius's words, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Taking a deep breath, Evelyn made her decision. "Alex," she said into the phone, her voice steady and clear, "I'm not coming to New York, but I have a better idea." Over the next hour, Evelyn set her plan in motion. She arranged for a live video feed to be set up in her mother's room, connecting directly to the shareholders' meeting in New York. As the technical team worked quietly around them, Evelyn sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand. When the time came, Evelyn faced the camera, her mother visible beside her. The faces of surprised shareholders filled the large screen they'd set up. "Ladies and gentlemen," Evelyn began, her voice strong despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "Today, I'm speaking to you from my mother's bedside. She's in hospice care, in her final days battling cancer." A hush fell over the virtual audience. "You might wonder why I'm sharing this deeply personal moment with you. It's because the vision I have for Innovate Tech isn't just a business strategy. It's a philosophy of life." Over the next 30 minutes, Evelyn laid out her vision for a company that truly valued the human experience in all its complexity. She spoke of innovation born from empathy, of success measured not just in profits, but in lives improved. "By allowing me to be here with my mother while still contributing to our company's future, Innovate Tech is already living this vision," she concluded. "This is the company I believe in. This is the future I invite you to be part of." As she finished, tears streaming down her face, Evelyn turned to her mother. Sarah's eyes shone with pride and love. "That's my girl," Sarah whispered, squeezing Evelyn's hand. The screen erupted in applause. Shareholders were on their feet, many wiping away tears of their own. In that powerful moment, Evelyn realized she had done more than save her company or honor her mother. She had found a way to truly live her principles, bridging the gap between personal and professional, between duty and love. As she embraced her mother, Evelyn felt a profound sense of peace. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she had the strength to face them. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. Her mother, Sarah, passed away peacefully 3 days after the shareholders' meeting, surrounded by love and comfort in her own home. Evelyn was by her side, holding her hand as she took her final breath, grateful for every moment they had shared. The grief was profound, but Evelyn found strength in the Stoic principles she had embraced. She remembered Marcus Aurelius's words, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." While the pain of losing her mother would never truly fade, Evelyn chose to honor Sarah's memory by living fully and purposefully. At Innovate Tech, the impact of Evelyn's presentation was seismic. The shareholders not only voted unanimously to keep the company independent, but also fully endorsed her vision for a more human-centric approach to business. Evelyn was promoted to Chief Innovation Officer, tasked with implementing her ideas across the entire organization. Under her leadership, Innovate Tech introduced groundbreaking policies. Flexible work arrangements became the norm, comprehensive healthcare extended to family members, and a life events leave policy allowed employees to take time off for significant personal milestones or challenges without fear of career repercussions. The changes rippled out beyond the company. Other businesses in the tech industry, seeing Innovate Tech's success, began to adopt similar policies. Evelyn found herself speaking at conferences, not just about technology, but about the intersection of business, ethics, and personal growth. 1 year after her mother's passing, Evelyn stood on a TEDx stage, addressing a rapt audience. "Life will always present us with challenges," she said, her voice strong and clear. "The key is not to avoid them, but to face them with grace and wisdom." By embracing Stoic principles, I learned that true strength comes not from controlling external events, but from mastering our responses to them. As applause filled the auditorium, Evelyn felt a profound sense of peace. She had navigated the storm of personal loss and professional challenges, emerging not unscathed, but undeniably stronger. Her journey had not only transformed her life, but had sparked a movement that was changing the way people approached work, life, and the delicate balance between the two. In that moment, Evelyn realized that her mother's legacy lived on, not just in her memories, but in the positive change she was creating in the world. And in this realization, she found the ultimate validation of her Stoic journey, the ability to find joy and purpose, even in life's most challenging moments. And here we conclude another story filled with emotion and Stoic lessons. To not miss our next videos, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, leave your like, your comment, and share with friends. Also, check out an excellent reading suggestion in the video description and in the first pinned comment.